Notre Dame returns home after an impressive win on the road to play a MAC team, and the Irish are favored by 4 touchdowns. So, what could possibly go wrong? Wait.
You are Locked On Irish, your daily podcast on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome into another edition of Locked On Irish, your daily Notre Dame podcast. And I'm your host, Tyler Wojciak. I'm a Notre Dame alum and producer at Fox Sports, and it's great to have you here on this Wednesday, September 18th. And thanks for making this your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts, and you can watch every episode on YouTube as well. Quick reminder, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe if you are watching on YouTube, or if you're listening to the pod, please leave a 5-star review and subscribe on your preferred podcast platform. And today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. All right, let's take a look at Notre Dame's upcoming game against the Miami Ohio Redhawks. Before the season started, I was pretty nervous about this game. Luke and I talked about it on our preseason award show. I think we called it the Domerfest Award because we both looked at this game as a potential awkward matchup, a trap game, because we both assumed the Irish would start off 3-0, be feeling pretty good about themselves. And Miami is coming off an 11-win season. They won the MAC last year. They returned some key players. And it looked like a game where Notre Dame could be sleepwalking a little bit. Well, that game already happened. And it was against Northern Illinois, and they lost. So the Irish should be on high alert in this one and not take any opponent for granted the rest of the way, especially a MAC team. So here's what you need to know about the game. Kickoff is set for 3:30 p.m. Eastern at Notre Dame Stadium. Dan Hicks and Jason Garrett are going to be on the call for NBC. It's going to be a hot one on Saturday, real hot. I'm actually glad I'm going to be watching this one at home. It's got a high of 88 degrees and not much wind to cool you down. That's got to be one of the hotter games in recent memory. So if you are going to be there, stay hydrated, folks, because it's going to be a doozy in the middle of the afternoon. Right now, Notre Dame is favored by 27.5 points, according to our friends at FanDuel Sportsbook, and the over-under is at 44.5. So Vegas is projecting Notre Dame to win by a score of something in the ballpark of 35-7, something like that. And Chuck Martin is leading the Redhawks. He is entering his 11th season as the head coach of Miami. That's pretty hard to believe that he has been there for that long, as you probably know. Chuck Martin was an assistant at Notre Dame for 4 years under Brian Kelly from 2010 through 2013. And something that I forgot about is that Chuck Martin actually coached defensive backs when he first joined the staff at Notre Dame. Then he coached the safeties in his second year. And then he just switched to the complete other side of the ball, was the offensive coordinator for Notre Dame during that special 2012 run, and he was also the offensive coordinator at 2013 before he left to take the job with Miami. And Miami was in a pretty dire state before Chuck Martin arrived. They went 0-12 the previous season, but Miami, Ohio, they have some history. I mean, they have Ben Roethlisberger. There's been some good players that come through, and Chuck Martin has really turned this program around. He has a 56-64 record over the past 11 years. He won 2 MAC championships, his first one in 2019 and most recently last year. As I said, coming off an 11-win season, their best year under Chuck Martin, although they are 0-2 so far on the year with a 13-6 loss in the season opener at Northwestern and a 27-16 loss at home to Cincinnati in week 2. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. I'm a bit more familiar with Miami, Ohio's roster than most of Notre Dame's opponents going into this this episode, because they are my team in an online dynasty I'm doing in the EA College Football 25 video game with my coworkers, and they're pretty good. We got a good squad. So I know a little bit more about the key players on this team and what they excel at least on the video game. But in all seriousness, let's take a look at the Miami, Ohio offense first. Usually we start with the defense. Let's start with their offense. Pat Welsh is their offensive coordinator, and to be honest with you, they have one of the worst offenses in the entire country, at least up to this point. They are second to last out of 134 teams in points per game with 11. They are 99th in yards per play at just 5 yards per play. They're averaging a whopping 1.4 yards per carry. 1.4. That is dead last in the entire country. And their 32 rush yards per game is also dead last. The one thing that they have been pretty good at up to this point on offense is passing the ball. Their quarterback is number 5 Number 5, Brett Gabbert. He is in his 14th year of playing college football. After the season, he will have to do one thing that he has been avoiding for decades, and that is make an account on LinkedIn. In all seriousness, Gabbert has just been dealt with some bad injury luck, but he won the starting job back in 2019. That's pretty wild. So he missed a good portion of the last 2 seasons because he had a shoulder injury 2 years ago and a broken leg last year. So far this season, he has a 62% completion percentage, has thrown for 566 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 picks in just 2 games. He was first-team All-MAC in the preseason. He's played good football before. He's got a pretty big arm. He was 10th. He was top 10 in average depth of target last year. He's going to try to take some shots downfield. On the video game, I can tell you that their backup running back number 3, Keon Mosey, is extremely fast. He's only 5'7", but he's got wheels, although he hasn't really had the opportunity to show them off yet because he only has 24 yards on 13 carries. So has not been super effective in real life, at least certainly not compared to what he does for me on the video game. Their actual leading rusher is number 6, Jordan Brunson. He has 33 yards in 2 games, and they have a pretty good wide receiver, so keep an eye out for him. Number 15, Cade McDonald. He's a product of Naperville, Illinois, went to Naperville Central High School, so I assume he's probably very familiar with Notre Dame, considering how many people I know from Naperville, at least when I went to school there. So far this season, he has 16 catches, 240 receiving yards, and a touchdown. He's also a very good punt returner. I expect them to try to target McDonald early and often. He's been very consistent, had 8 catches in each of the first 2 games. So he's been pretty good. Not a big guy, only 5'11", but very good route runner. And I think he's going to be someone that Notre Dame has to key on offense. Reggie Virgil, big body receiver who can make plays for Miami, 6'4", had a 58-yard reception and touchdown against Cincinnati. But their offensive line has been an issue. They haven't allowed a ton of sacks, but part of that is because Gabbert is pretty mobile. They've only given up 3 sacks, but 12 total tackles for loss through 2 games. But the fact that they're just providing no push and giving this offense just 0 room to run the ball is a big, big issue. So I expect Notre Dame's defense to be in the backfield early and often in this one and make life hell on their quarterback. So my keys for the Notre Dame defense in this one, pretty simple. Limit explosive pass plays downfield. This team is not going to be able to run the ball whatsoever on this Notre Dame defense. So really, the only way that Miami is going to be able to score any points is by racking up some big explosive pass plays. Notre Dame has been really good at preventing that so far this season. They have not allowed many downfield pass plays. So as long as they are able to prevent Gabbert from showing off that big arm that he has, then they should be fine in the secondary. They also need to dominate the line of scrimmage and build off what they did against Purdue because, Purdue had a nice opener against Indiana State, and Hudson Card went like 24 of 25, which is impressive no matter which way you slice it because it's hard to go 24 of 25 throwing in 7-on-7, let alone against an actual defense who's trying to stop you. But then Notre Dame quickly shut down any hopes for that Purdue offense, and the big reason why was because the Notre Dame defensive line was just dominating Purdue. They were in the backfield all day long. Purdue wasn't able to get anything going in the run game or the passing game. Chuck Martin even said that when he had the chance to watch a film of Notre Dame against Purdue, he actually felt bad for Hudson Card by the end of the first half because he was just getting crushed back there. And that is the defensive line that we expected to see all year long for Notre Dame. So they need to get in the backfield early, sack Gabbert, eliminate any chance of them running the ball because when Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois, they only gave up 16 points. But Northern Illinois was able to run the ball with Ontario Brown. I don't expect Miami to be able to do that at all. So the Notre Dame defense should be able to get off the field quickly by forcing them into third and longs, then using that elite secondary to shut them down. So I don't expect many points on the board from the Miami Ohio offense so long as the Notre Dame defense is able to prevent any big plays from happening and just keep the momentum going on the defensive line because they have been dominant. They need to be dominant for Notre Dame to get where they need to go this season. So as long as they do those 2 things, this defense should be more than fine. As for the Notre Dame offense, will this be the game they finally make some plays in the downfield passing game? That's next on Locked On Irish. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You've heard me talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Well, we have something a little different for you today. So now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then, with the YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. I honestly cannot recommend this enough. As I've told you before, I've been using YouTube TV for years. It's great. It's affordable. And the Sunday ticket option makes it even better. But the promotion is only going through September 22nd, so you have to act now. Like, seriously, what's better than watching your favorite team play football every Sunday? The ability to also check in on every other game and check in to make sure that your fantasy team is winning as well. Football season is here. I love it. I'm so excited. And FanDuel allows you to get in on the action like never before. Just visit FanDuel.com to download America's #1 sportsbook. Today's episode is also brought to you by Gametime. Whether it be sports, concerts, comedy shows, you name it, I love going to live events. And Gametime is a new feature called Gametime Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Gametime Picks filters out the fluff to show you incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And the great thing about Gametime is the curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, whatever you want to go to. It's all easier with Gametime. Just recently, I went to a Dodgers-Guardians game. I didn't even really want to go, but then I saw the prices on Gametime, and it was the day of the Northern Illinois game. So I was like, I need to do something fun. I bought the tickets, went to see my favorite team, and they lost. But I still had a good time, all thanks to Gametime. My favorite thing about the app is you get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy, and then you can buy tickets in seconds with just 2 taps. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. I know a lot of Notre Dame fans want to see the Irish air it out this week against Miami, but I'm warning you. I think the game plan is going to look very similar to how it did against Purdue, and here's why. Bill Brechin is their defensive coordinator. He's done a good job since he took over in 2022, but to this point, and I understand it's only been through 2 games, Miami has been much better at stopping the pass than the run. They have given up 182.5 rush yards per game, which is a ton. They allow 5.6 yards per carry. That is 125th in the country. They make very few havoc plays in the line of scrimmage. They have just 2 sacks on the year and 7 total tackles for loss, which is 130th out of 134. Their pass defense, though, has been pretty solid. They're only allowing 5.7 yards per attempt, which is 34th in the country, and 182 pass yards per game is pretty average. That's kind of right in the middle compared to all the other teams in the country, and part of that has to do with the fact that the quarterbacks they face, no doubt. It's not like Northwestern or Cincinnati have had great quarterback play so far this season, but Miami's defense carried them to 11 wins last season. That is why they were so good, and they were able to stop the passing game for the most part. They were actually tied with Notre Dame in scoring defense last season. That's kind of crazy to think about. Both teams gave up 15.9 points per game. They were also 16th in yards per play and 9th in third down defense. And I understand that they were going up against weaker competition in the MAC, but that's still pretty good. Like, they were all around a really solid defense last year. They've given up some points this year, but the big reason why they have taken a step back is because they've given up a lot of yards on the ground. They did return some key players, though, some guys that you absolutely need to keep an eye out for. Number 8, Brian Ugwu, I think is his name. He's their best edge rusher. He started his career at Rutgers. He racked up 13 sacks and 22 tackles for loss over the course of the past 2 seasons, but he's had a bit of a quiet year so far, although he is definitely a guy that Notre Dame needs to keep an eye out for on the offensive line. He's a good edge rusher. He's a little bit skinny, but he's quick and can get in the backfield in a hurry and definitely could sack Riley Leonard if this offensive line, who is breaking in 2 new starters this week, if they don't key on him, he could get in the backfield and wreak some havoc. Their best player, though, on this defense, number 15, Matt Slopek. He's one of the best linebackers in the entire country. He's a senior from Kent, Ohio. He had 19 total tackles in the first 2 games, and he had 143 tackles last season. That's so many. He's had over 100 tackles in each of the past 3 seasons. So if he does it again, he'd have over 400 career tackles. That's a ton. This guy is all over the ball on the field. He was on some preseason All-American lists. I'm not talking All-MAC. I'm talking All-American. Phil Steele had him as a 3rd-team preseason All-American. I'm sure he had some offers to play at bigger schools, but he elected to stay at Miami of Ohio. He's a really good player. They also have another really good linebacker, number 10, Ty Wise. He could really get after the quarterback. He's huge. for a linebacker. He's 6'2", 250 pounds, but sometimes they like to bring him off the edge. He can basically act as another edge rusher. He started his career at Indiana. He was all MAC last season with the Redhawks after he registered 122 tackles and 8 sacks. Also had 5 pass breakups, so this guy can move around. Like, he's not just in the box, stopping the run. He can get after the passer. He can also make some plays in coverage as well. And for him to be able to move around like that at 250 pounds is really impressive. So they have 2 really good linebackers with Slopek and Ty Wise. And their secondary, number 13, Rayon Strider, he's one of their better defensive backs, or at least he was last season. But interestingly enough, he's already given up 11 catches on 20 targets this season for 122 yards, according to Pro Football Focus. So teams are attacking him. That being said, he's still a good player. He's definitely capable of making some plays. He had 57 total tackles last season and 13 pass breakups, and he was a true freshman last year. So he's only in his second year of college football, and considering Notre Dame hasn't had a ton of production from their wide receivers, he is someone who could potentially make some plays as Notre Dame tries to pass the ball downfield. Okay, my keys to the game for the Notre Dame offense. My first one, you might not like it. It's run the damn ball. And I know a lot of fans don't want to hear this, but the run game is going to be there for the Notre Dame offense. And when it's there, just take advantage of it. Notre Dame should run the ball at will with Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Riley Leonard. Love especially should get the ball early and often. He is 6th in the country in yards per carry right now with 7.97 yards per carry, but he only has 35 carries through 3 games. Frankly, that's not enough. And I understand that he wasn't playing a ton against Purdue, but I really want to see Love get a couple series right off the bat. And I understand you got to share the love a little bit with Jadarian Price. I think he should get the ball as well. And you're going to bring in Aeneas Williams or Devin Ford in passing situations because they're a little bit better in pass protection. But give the ball to Jeremiah Love as much as possible. I'd like to see a heavy dose of him and Price carrying the rock. And when it's there for Leonard, he should run as well. But I don't want him to run as much in this game because they need to keep him healthy. He is still recovering from whatever shoulder injury he suffered against Northern Illinois. I'm not going to say what I think it is or whatever the diagnosis is because I don't think anyone actually knows. He looked healthy against Purdue, so I expect him to be fully healthy against Miami of Ohio. But still, I don't want to see Notre Dame running the quarterback all that much if they don't have to. I think they're going to be able to run a lot with their running backs. Plus, they need to help the offensive line build some confidence. As I said, they're going to be replacing 2 new starters. Ashton Craig, the center, is out for the season. Bailey Strouth is going to be out for the next several weeks. So you got Pat Coogan making his first career start at center. Now, granted, he did start every game last season at left guard, so he has experience before, but not really a ton at center. At right guard, you got Rocco Spindler, who started 10 games last year. So feel better about him. He also looked really good against Purdue. But running the ball helps build confidence for the offensive line, especially when you run it successfully. And I think Notre Dame is going to be able to do that against this Miami of Ohio defense. That being said, my other key to the game is convert on the passing plays downfield when they're available. If Notre Dame runs the ball as well as I think they're going to, that means there will be plays to be made downfield. Fans really want to see Leonard air it out and really prove himself as a passer because he hasn't done that yet. And even though I've kind of come to the defense of Leonard over the course of the past few days, I admit he still really needs to develop as a passer. And even though some fans want this to be like a get-right game and him to throw the ball over the field, I don't think he needs to do that, but he definitely needs to take a step in the right direction. He needs to connect on some plays in the intermediate pass game, and I'd love to see him connect on a deep shot or two. We heard a lot about Chris Mitchell and what he did at Florida International during this offseason, but Notre Dame has not been able to convert on any deep balls to him yet this season. I think this could be a game where they try to force it, or maybe it's KK Smith, because Mike Denbrock spoke really highly of him this week. He said he kind of reminds him of Will Fuller. He doesn't have quite the same speed, but I expect Notre Dame to try to convert on a couple deep shots. Maybe it's a play-action play, and they try to hit him downfield. And Mike Denbrock was pretty candid about the fact that the passing game really hasn't been up to par. He had a good quote. I believe it was Tyler Horka from Blue and Gold. Quote, we're going to have to be more consistent with the way we throw the ball moving forward to be the type of offensive unit we need to be, end quote. He gets it, right? I think this entire offense gets it, and Riley Leonard specifically needs to take a step in the right direction this week because he's absolutely going to have to throw the ball against Louisville for Notre Dame to win that game. This isn't going to be a game where he's going to figure it all out And it's not going to be a get-right game in the full sense of the word, but he is going to need to connect on some throws to build some confidence. Like, there were several plays in the Purdue game where he had the ball in the pocket and he just didn't look confident. He would roll out to his right when he didn't have to. When we did make some passes downfield, they were not on target, and I think it's because he just doesn't really have a ton of confidence right now throwing the ball. He made plays at Duke. He showed that he can pass the ball. He made some NFL-type throws when he's the quarterback of the Blue Devils, but we haven't really seen that a ton since he became the quarterback at Notre Dame. He did against Texas A&M. He hit Jane Greathouse in a key third down on that final drive when Notre Dame scored the go-ahead touchdown. He hit Bo Collins on the pass, so we know that he's capable of doing it. We just need to see him do it on a more consistent basis. So the most important thing for Riley Leonard in this game, stay healthy, and build some confidence as a passer. If he does that, I'm going to feel good about him going against Louisville. I know fans might want to see a little bit more, but trust me, I think Notre Dame is going to be able to run the ball a lot on this team. And when you can run the ball like that, just take it. Don't get bored taking a profit. And if you can run the ball 5 to 6 yards every single time, just take advantage of it. But still, we need to see some passing plays. We need to see him connecting some balls downfield. And I think they're going to do it in this game. Okay, Miami had one of the best special teams units in all of college football last season. How could they impact the game on Saturday? I'll break it down, plus my predictions right after this. Today's episode is also brought to you by Roy. Have you heard about Roy? It stands for Return on You, and it's a new platform that lets you, the fans, get involved in NIL like never before by making contributions directly to your favorite athletes. By supporting players directly, you can help shape rosters, retain talent, and keep your favorite athletes out of the transfer portal. As you all know, NIL has changed the game for athletes. Well, Roy changes the NIL game for fans. It allows fans to directly back their favorite college athletes, and with Roy, fans can play a key role in shaping the future of their favorite teams while athletes maximize their name, image, and likeness potential. Fans' contributions are securely held and are only distributed if the athlete makes the decision that aligns with the fan's support. If not, the money is returned to the fan. Download Roy for iOS or Android and enter referral code LOCKEDON, and you'll automatically be entered into a sweepstakes to win $5,000 cash. Just visit joinroy.com for additional details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get the Roy app for iOS or Android and start making an impact on your favorite team. Use referral code LOCKEDON for an opportunity to win $5,000 cash. Visit joinroy.com for more details. No purchase necessary, void where prohibited. Get off the sidelines and into the NIL game with Roy. This might come as a surprise, but Miami, Ohio had one of the best special teams units in all of college football last season. But as Chuck Martin pointed out, they lost some key pieces. You might have seen that clip that came out before the season when somebody asked him about his kicker, and he made it very clear that Alabama bought their kicker. That's true. Graham Nicholson is, in fact, at Alabama, but they also lost their special teams coordinator as well. His name is Jacob Gronkowski. He is now with the Pitt Panthers. That being said, they still have a very good punter. He is, in fact, a weapon. Alec Bovelheimer is his name. He was a first-team All-American in the preseason watch list, according to Phil Steele. His 43.1 net punting average was tied for 7th in the country last year, according to Jamie Uyeyama from Irish Sports Daily. And their new kicker is pretty good. Dom Jobin, I think is how you say his last name. He is 3 of 4 on field goal attempts so far this year, and his lone miss was from beyond 50 yards. So he's got a pretty good leg on him, although Notre Dame should be able to return some kicks in this one. They use a different kicker on kickoffs, and he only has 4 touchbacks out of 7 this year. So Jane Harrison might have a few chances to break one. He's been close a few times. He had a nice kickoff return in a critical situation against Northern Illinois, put Notre Dame in pretty decent field position, but unfortunately the offense was not able to take advantage of that. Money Mitch has been solid whenever he's really had the opportunity to be this year. I don't put either of the blocked field goals on him in the game against Northern Illinois. And yes, Luke Smith and I did have some fun at punter James Rindell's expense this week because he has not been very good for Notre Dame this season. And in fact, he's been very bad for the Irish this year. But Marcus Freeman seemed pretty confident that they would figure things out this week. I really hope he gets like 1 or 2 attempts, and that's about it because hopefully the offense is just humming for Notre Dame. But I'd like to see him just absolutely boot one, help him build some confidence so that he can start to figure it out because this Notre Dame defense is so good. If you just give them good field position, they are going to be even better and give up even less points. So I'd like to see a big step in the right direction for him. But overall, Notre Dame's special teams have been fine for the most part with the exception of the punting problems. So let's get to the predictions. I've got a bold prediction for you. And this one, Riley Leonard, the starting quarterback for Notre Dame, is going to throw a passing touchdown. I know, it's crazy. He hasn't done it yet. I think he's going to get it done in the fourth game of the season against Miami of Ohio. My guess is that it's going to be to tight end Mitchell Evans, who is still working his way back, but they need him to be 100% full go against Louisville, so I think that they're going to let him go a little bit more in this one. He only played like 20-something snaps against Purdue because they were destroying them in the second half, but I'd like to see him ramp it up a little bit more with Mitchell Evans. And kind of a surprising stat, Mitchell Evans, for as good as he is, only has 2 total touchdowns in his career. He had one in the bowl game against South Carolina. He had one last year. So I'd like to see Notre Dame run a play-action play in the red zone and find Mitchell Evans in the end zone. I think we're actually going to see a lot of play-action in the red zone because Miami's defense is going to be stacking the box to stop the run, and that could lead to some big plays for Notre Dame in the passing game. They haven't run a lot of play-action. Actually, they have run very little play-action with Riley Leonard, but when Steve Angeli went out there, his very first pass attempt, play action, touchdown to Cooper Flanagan. I'm also expecting a good game from Jaden Greathouse. He's been pretty quiet to start the year. He had a nice catch against Purdue, but it was called back for a holding. That's been my biggest issue with Anthony Knapp so far this year, a lot of holdings. And usually when he holds, they're pretty blatant. So hopefully he cleans that up. And I'd really like to see Jaden Greathouse get some momentum here because, again, Notre Dame is going to need to pass the ball against Louisville. No other wide receiver other than Bo Collins has really made a ton of big plays. So I'd like to see Jaden Greathouse get like 5 or 6 catches, maybe break off a big one. That would be really important for him. Right now it looks like Bo Collins is the only alpha in that wide receiver room. He's made some big plays before. I already mentioned Chris Mitchell and KK Smith. One of those guys is going to have to convert on a deep shot in this game. But mainly, the Irish are going to run the ball a lot. They're going to have a lot of success doing so. So I expect Love to have a touchdown, Price to have a touchdown, Leonard's probably going to have a touchdown on the ground as well, and hopefully a passing touchdown to boot. Defensively, if Notre Dame gives up double-digit points, I'll be pretty surprised. It's really tough to shut a team out. I mean, even Purdue, who's terrible, scored a touchdown, but I just don't see Miami of Ohio's offense doing anything on a consistent basis to threaten this Notre Dame defense. Considering they can't run the ball at all, and Notre Dame's biggest strength is their secondary, there's just not going to be a lot of options for the Red Hawk offense. So my final score prediction is 31-3 Notre Dame. Like I said, before the season, I was a little bit worried about this game. I thought it could be tricky, but Notre Dame has to be on high alert in this game. They cannot afford a setback of any kind. They cannot fall into a lull. Like that loss in Northern Illinois was so embarrassing. The only possible thing that they could do to make things a little bit better after that was to annihilate Purdue. That's exactly what they did. 59-point margin victory. They need to keep their foot on the gas in this one, and I expect them to do that. I don't expect them to score as many points as they did against Purdue because that seems impossible, but still, a 31-3 win would be nice. They'd cover. The offense is probably going to have a little bit more difficulty moving the ball because Miami of Ohio does have some good pieces on that defense, but it's a big win, a cover, and hopefully a big step in the right direction, particularly on offense before the Irish face Louisville next week. And I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm very nervous about that game. Given the hometown ties and everything and given what I dealt with last year, I'm not really looking forward to that one, even though I actually will be in attendance for that. So let's get a good step in the right direction so there's still some more momentum and we're not having more questions about the passing game and all of that going into that game because that's a big game. It's probably going to be a ranked matchup when the Irish host the Cardinals. Irish wear green, big game. But first they need to take care of Miami, and I think they're going to do that with relative ease. All right, that's going to do it for me today. Thanks again for making Locked On Irish first listen of the day. I'm going to be right back here tomorrow morning. Then on Friday, another mailbag for you. Get your questions in. You can submit yours in the YouTube comments or on X at Locked On Irish or on Instagram at Locked On Irish Pod. Remember, subscribe on YouTube or your preferred podcast platform. And for your second listen, check out Locked On College Football. I'll see you tomorrow.